Yo, what's up guys? It's Boo from Mile Hi Distilling. Welcome to the newest video on our channel, as well as the newest installment of our Distilling Duel series. This is one of my favorite series. Now, it totally wasn't me, guys, but some absolute jackwagon destroyed a batch of booze. I don't know how. They managed to destroy this batch so bad. I mean, utterly terrible. Now, as embarrassing as that is for them, luckily, we do have ways that we can fix what otherwise would just be wasted liquor. There's quite a few ways we can go about cleaning up or fixing some mistake we made during the distillation process, and it really kind of depends on what's going wrong with the batch. However, for this case, we are going to be looking at carbon filtering to clean up a bad batch of spirit, something that smells a little funky, something that probably has some components, some chemicals that it probably shouldn't in there. This isn't going to completely eliminate all chemicals in there that shouldn't be in there. If you have like fusel oils from your tails, carbon isn't necessarily going to take that out. There's some things that we can't really do much about. If there's too much methanol in our spirit, it's not like running it through carbon will make it any less methanol-y. But if we have a bad taste to our spirit, we have a bad smell to our spirit, we can use carbon as a way to take that out. We can also use it to strip flavor if maybe we brought in something that we're not looking for in our spirit, or perhaps we over oaked something. Potentially carbon can save if you over oak. Anyways, there's a lot of reasons why we could use this method for cleaning up our spirit, and this is one of them. There's a few different types of carbon on the market. Your most standard are going to be wood and stone. Most of you are probably familiar with this type of carbon. A lot of professional distilleries in our industry will be using a coconut shell carbon. It's supposed to be extremely pure. It's going to be sort of a premium type of carbon filtering, and today I'm going to put that to the test. This is going to be Distilling Duel, stone carbon versus coconut-based carbon. Now let's run a little bit about the criteria I'm looking for in order to pick our winner here. Number one, very basic, we're going to be testing for overall cleanliness. After these spirits have been filtered with their respective carbons, we're going to see if we really notice a difference. Let's see how much of that flavor gets stripped out, how much of those nasty particles we don't want in there are gone. We want a nice clean spirit. What we're also going to be looking for here is color, or I guess lack thereof. I have a few jars of this spirit that have been oaked, and that's because I wanted to see if my flavor could change for the better. Using oak, it's just one of those experiments to see if I can fix that spirit. So they're dark, and I want to see if either of those carbons are capable of removing that color from oak. That's one thing with carbon. You can be rest assured that you will remove some of your coloring, but I want to see if there is a noticeable change in the amount of color that's taken out between the two carbons. One thing I'll be looking for is not so much cost, because always stone carbon is going to be cheaper than coconut carbon. It's just how it is. But I want to see more about like return on investment type costs, right? So if coconut carbon ends up taking the point in both its cleanliness and its ability to strip color, I think by all means, it's worth the extra cost. So we'll be factoring that in during cost. Now, before we go ahead and start with carbon filtering and getting everything ran through a filter system, I'm going to go ahead and take a scoop of each carbon. I'm going to put it in this really dark, oaky spirit that I have. Carbon's a very porous material, and I'm just curious if we can remove some of that coloring just by having it naturally sit in that jar. Now here we have my aged spirit. This has been going on for just a few days. It's got a nice brownish color. Clearly, I don't know if y'all can see that, there's tons of particulate in there from the wood. Again, the carbon is going to remove that as well. And then on this side of things, no, I didn't go to the bathroom in this jar. What it is mainly just after infusion. So what I did was take some agave syrup and actually just poured a bunch of agave syrup directly in this jar. So it's got like a yellowish color. And just for the hell of it, we're also going to throw some carbon in there and see what it'll do here. Let's go ahead and add a tablespoon of stone carbon right in there. And the same is going to go for that. Now let's also grab our tablespoon of coconut Go in there, as well as there. So in a shocking turn of events, it looks like our stone carbon is actually coming out clearer than our coconut shell carbon. However, this made my brain do a little bit of some double takes here. Maybe it's a good thing that we had this black tint when we run through coconut shell carbon versus stone. As we mentioned, carbon's a very porous material. What it's doing is latching on to those alcohol molecules and essentially roughing them up a bit. The fact that we can filter out our stone carbon and have it be completely clear makes me think there's nothing latched onto it. That carbon sort of roughed it up a little bit, and then I don't know enough science, but I think it basically just let the alcohol molecules detach from it. I don't know if that's even making sense to y'all. My theory is that the coconut shell carbon, it's finer, I know this for sure, and I think maybe it's holding on to those alcohol molecules a little tighter, so it's actually coming through. That very fine coffee filter, it's coming through. I have to rework and think about this whole purity situation and what that means. But I am curious. I want to go ahead and run through an actual carbon filtering system, and I want to see just how clear we get things when it's ran through the proper way like that. That was just me pouring directly into my jar. I did pre-wash both of these carbons twice before they actually started to filtrate, so I don't think there's any sort of dust that contributed to those findings. Now for our next step, let's go ahead and put all of this in one big jar. We don't want to filter over 40% ABV, 80 proof. So we might have to dial this back. There is a chance that I actually won't get a proof percentage on this anyways, because some of these jars have a concentrated agave syrup directly in them. And that tends to skew with our readings. That's where those yellow jars came from. And as expected, we are not getting a proof reading because that agave syrup that I added directly into this jar is going to be heavier than alcohol. The way an alcohol meter works, it's measuring the density of alcohol compared to other liquids such as water. That's the same reason that you don't get a reading when you use an alcohol meter on a fermentation that hasn't been distilled yet. That fermentation is only, 15% alcohol compared to 85% water, and water's heavier than alcohol, so you don't get a reading. So be it. There's other ways that we can test what that proof is. Just kidding. It's water. I don't know. I'm gonna run it anyways. The reality is that when I did actually take a sip of the solution that I had, not the best way to determine it, but there's no way it's over like at least 80 proof. I think it's less than that. It's too sweet. It's not bitey enough. Do as I say, not like I do, I guess, but I'm not worried about it. I know it's below the threshold. And in one of the more rinky-dink setups I've ever created here, what we have is our mason jar, where we'll be collecting into, connected to a 4x2 tri-clamp adapter plate, just kind of haphazardly sitting on top of there. I'm sure it's going to be fine, right? Then we're going to attach our filter unit, which uses a 2-inch tri-clamp, with that clamp right there. And there's our filter unit all the way up. That's what we're going to be running with, guys. Let's just hope that doesn't fall. Now, as far as how much carbon to use, we're going to be looking at about 1/10 of a pound per gallon. That translates to about 1.6 ounces per gallon, or around 57 grams per gallon of carbon. So I don't even think I have a gallon here. We're going to have to do a little bit of play work, but just to give you guys a ratio. So it looks like in terms of the volume that I'm going to have to try to fix with carbon. I have about 48 ounces worth, a little under half a pound. I'm going to call it right at 1 ounce of carbon to filter this. So very, very small amount. Let's see what we can do with it. So we're just going to end up using 2 tablespoons. That's about an ounce worth. Now obviously that is a very small amount for this filter unit. This filter unit is designed to work for like 10 to 15 gallons worth of liquor at a time. We're using just a small amount, but it's still going to work. What will happen is we have these coffee filters at the bottom of our filter unit, and that's going to hold everything in place. So it doesn't matter how much little we use. We're going to keep on pouring, and it's just going to go down in this pipe. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to go all the way up to the top. You know, it doesn't have to sit in this basket. That's more just to transfer it in. Most of the carbon is going to sit right in this pipe, even when you're using it to its full potential at 10 to 15 gallons at a time. So it doesn't really matter how much we're running through. And there we have it, guys. That is final results from our filtrations. More than anything, I'm kind of just blown away by the amount of volume I lost, but that has nothing to do with carbon. I just want to make that known. That's me as a distiller. That must have been some dirty, rank distillate if that carbon is managing to absorb that much of my volume. Completely on me. We started with about 48 ounces of spirit combined. I have that between the 2 carbons, so 24 ounces went to stone carbon and 24 ounces went to coconut shell carbon. And just through multiple filtrations, it just kept absorbing more and more, getting rid of all the particulate, all the nasty particles in there that I don't want. If that's what I'm left with, so be it. I would have had 0 of this without this carbon. So at least I can reclaim a little bit of my horrible batch of spirit. That coconut shell carbon completely changed. When we were just dumping that carbon straight in, we have that black particulate coming out. Even when we filtered with cheesecloth between 2 jars, that dust, those fines were all still right there in the jar. And man, what a world of difference. That is clean as a bell. You guys remember what I started with? This inky, brown, oaky spirit and this piss-colored other jar. And now it looks like it just got distilled into a vodka through a 6-plate column. That stone just has a slight tint of yellow, but it's removed most of that. And it's not just about that color. I also want to see how these are going to taste and see if there's a difference there. Here we go with some stone carbon. The fact that I'm not gagging as soon as I drink it tells me it's definitely a big change. It's still got a lot of those agave notes, and I wanted that, so I'm okay with that staying. It's got a nice little back end of sweet agave. There were some grains involved here that were on the sweeter side, a lot of toffee, caramelly type grains, and those look to have carried over a tiny bit. You're always going to lose flavor with carbon. I'm getting that to a small little hint. This isn't nearly what it could have been. I was trying to make a whiskey, but this is a good residual flavor moonshine, I guess we'd call it at this point. I'm enjoying that. And here goes our coconut. That's actually like decent. I would drink this. That's actually a lot different. It almost carries over some of the charcoal in the flavor, and I don't know about you guys, but I kind of like it. It's kind of smoky. It reminds me almost of like wings. So I kind of like it. Even though that coconut shell I don't think has brought over as much flavor as the stone carbon has. I think that's almost a better thing in this application, a nice neutral base to restart with. So with all that said, we've done our filtrations, we've sipped our final product, we've looked at our final product. Let's go ahead and call this matchup. Now in terms of purity, I think what we're seeing with the stone carbon is it did amazing things with how this tasted before as to how this is now. Very, very happy with that. And I think in a lot of applications, if you don't want to spend the extra money and just want to clean up your spirit with the stone, I think by all means it would do it for you, and it'd do it fairly well. I'm still getting some residual flavors. again, that's not always a bad thing. In this application, I would have liked less flavor. I kind of just wanted to start from scratch at a neutral, whereas the coconut shell is exactly that. It's fairly close to a neutral spirit base. I'm not getting any of my nasty grain flavors that didn't work over, and I'm getting a tiny sweetness from that agave still, but it's not overbearing, and it doesn't even really coat your mouth at all. It just kind of, you taste it in the beginning when you know what you're looking for, and then it just kind of goes to a neutral. So I think without a doubt, in terms of purity, cleanliness, we're gonna go ahead and give that to coconut shell carbon. Another thing we were looking for was transparency of our spirit. These spirits started out either that pea yellow color or they started out murky oak. And what we're seeing now is a dramatic difference. As mentioned, that coconut shell has just a tiny hue of that yellow, but if I put it up in the sun like I'm doing now, I mean, that's relatively clear. It's done a wonderful job of removing a lot of that color. I think the same sentence needs to be uttered again. In most applications, if you don't feel like spending the money on a premium carbon, you want to get down on your bill a little bit, I think stone carbon is a very effective source to remove. Do so well. You might have to filter multiple times, but I'm pretty proud with the results just based off that lower grade carbon. And then bringing it back to this coconut shell, I mean, you couldn't even tell this thing had any color at all at any point. I will say, interesting enough, is that it's almost a tiny bit murky still compared to the stone. The stone's going to have that yellow tint, but it's clear as a bell when you look at it through light. Whereas the coconut just has a tiny bit of murkiness, and I think that's, again, because that carbon is just so fine. So there's still some latched on into this alcohol jar, and it's just kind of murking things up a bit. But overall, transparency is fairly simple to tell. That one's going to go ahead and go to coconut shell carbon. Now let's talk about the big one, the one that I have to rack my brain a little bit for, return on investment. Now, as you guys just saw during that little intermission period, we talked about coconut shell versus stone carbon and kind of their costs associated. On average, coconut shell is about double the price of a stone carbon. Now that's a big differential there. I will say, giving our results and seeing how amazingly transparent this coconut shell turned this spirit, right there, it's a huge seller for me. I really do like that. In terms of purity and cleanliness of the spirit, again, that coconut shell just has sort of an advancement to it. It's just nice and neutral. If that's what you're going for with your carbon and you're not just trying to clean it up but keep some of the taste, I think by all means, I think that's also just sort of superior for the cost. The one gripe I would say I have with the coconut carbon is it's just so fine that it's kind of hard to remove. I had to basically move jar to jar, then layer up a few more coffee filters and jar to jar and continue along that pattern of filtering out a lot of that color for probably a good 4 runs before I got it to a point where it was transparent enough. And then, you know, running through that filter obviously helps, but it still came out fairly murky and black. What I'm trying to say is it's effective, but it's definitely a little more work when it comes to filtering out that spirit and getting it to a clear level. It's also important to note that the filter unit I was using, it's phenomenal for most applications, but it's not like it's some super high grade filter. If I were to use like a DE filter or something with like a 200 micron sieve tray plate, some crazy filter, that wouldn't have been the case. It would have ran through and been just fine the first time. But using sort of a lower grade setup, just coffee filters on the end as our filtering media, I mean, I can only be so happy with the results for what I use, right? So take that into account when I give this rating. A higher grade filter, something that's meant to sort of work through things a lot finer, probably wouldn't have this problem where I would even come out black in the first place. With all that said and done, this last result is going to be a little personal preference. So take everything you've heard, make up your own mind. Do I think that coconut shell carbon has a better return on investment from the stone carbon, given that it's double the price? I think I do. I'm really happy with these results. All in all, that is 3 for 3 for coconut shell carbon. Coconut shell carbon is going to take this victory. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any comments you want to make on carbon for yourself, or just have questions or concerns that you want to ask, go ahead and leave a comment down below. While you're scrolling down to that comment list, go ahead and check the description of this video. You're going to see a bunch of social media links. Go ahead and follow all those, support all those. That's for Mile Hi Distilling, as well as our distillery, Conflagration Distillery. We're making some moves with that distillery. So there's also a link to Conflagration Distillery's site where you can purchase a bottle direct to your door if you want to try what we got. My next steps on the spirits are I'm going to continue aging. I want to see how this tastes oaked like it was supposed to be originally, and go from there. But all in all, I'm happy that I reclaimed a little bit of something from this mess I made, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video very much. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for all your support. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more. We appreciate you guys very much. Take care, y'all. Bye.